Hi everybody, I am Katie Varvos and you are watching The Unemployed Graduate, the show where I talk to you about news and issues that matter to me and hopefully you guys too. Today I wanted to talk to you guys about a major international news story that is happening, and that is the Russian involvement in the Ukraine. So I wanted to talk to you guys about this because yesterday I overheard two people talking about the Russian involvement in the Ukraine, and they were a little confused why it was so important in the international community and what exactly was happening. So first we have to go all the way back to Crimea. It's located on a peninsula in the Black Sea. It broke up from the Soviet Union in 1991 and now it is formally part of the Ukraine. However, there are many Russian speakers there. In fact, according to the latest census, there were 58% Russian speakers and only 24% of people in Crimea define themselves as Ukrainian. Now, this isn't just about language, it's about self-identification. And we see this self-identification manifest itself in many different areas of the Ukraine. When we look back at the Ukraine in the city of Kiev at the beginning of the protests, what it was originally about was the president doing a U-turn on a EU agreement. So we have supporters in the Ukraine who are pro-EU, and then we also have supporters in the Ukraine who are pro-Russian. However, the country is vastly divided geographically as well as ethnically. And just a little side note, in case that isn't confusing enough, Crimea also has the largest Muslim population in the Ukraine. So now that we know that the country is divided into two very distinct fractions, we can look at the international community, why this is such a major and important event for the international community. Now I want to jog your memories back to June of this summer in the G8 summit in Northern Ireland. And you may remember massive tensions between Obama and Vladimir Putin, Russia's president, over the civil war in Syria. Just a little side note, the civil war is still happening and it's horrific, and we shouldn't forget about it just because this is making major international news headlines. Anyway, the two presidents were very split on what the international community should do. The situation got extremely intense when there was evidence that chemical weapons were used. And why didn't Russia want to intervene? Well, there was large economic interest for Russia to continue supplying arms to Assad's troops. And the UN, you may wonder, why didn't it intervene? Well, it received both a veto from Russia and China to intervene. As we know, in the UN Security Council, if one of the major players puts out a veto like Russia and China did, the UN is not allowed to intervene. So this brings us all the way back to the Ukraine now. After the Ukraine president fled the country, Russian troops entered Crimea. Well, first of all, to protect the Russians living in the area, and also Russian interests while the Ukraine is under political crisis. Now, the US and also many EU countries, including Ireland, have come out to condemn these actions by the Russian troops for entering Crimea. And just on Tuesday of this week, Russian troops fired shots, but no blood was spilled. And then President Obama said, "I think everybody recognizes that although Russia has legitimate interests in what happens in a neighboring state, that does not give them the right to use force as a means of exerting influence inside that state." And then President Putin said this, "We will not go to war with the Ukraine people. If we do take military action, it will only be for the protection of the Ukraine people," said Putin, adding that there was no scenario in which Russian troops would fire on women and children. So the problems with the Russians invading Crimea are evident. First of all, there is a huge split within the country. That is the Ukrainians versus the Russians, ethnically, languagely, also geographically in the country. But as well, there is a huge international problem here. The EU, the US, the Russians all have economic interests. So the Russians moving into Crimea is not just about the 16,000 strong troops moving in, although it is arguably a huge deal on its own. This is not just about Crimea. Just like in the G8, the talks were not just about Syria. There is a stronger geopolitical as well as real political divide here between the East and the West. It's driven by money, it's driven by territory, and it's driven by power. But the real problem here is the fear and the tension amongst the major superpowers. And this brings us to the question of the day. Does this have potential to be another Cold War? Don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and of course subscribe to the channel. Until next week, I'm Katie Varvos, just another unemployed graduate.